I'm just
Yeah.
saying the recruit firefighters from various countries, they were in Mayo for essential fire brigade recruit training. What counties were involved, Tony, and what sort of numbers are you talking about?
That's right, Declan. Yeah, recruits from all over the country, including the counties you mentioned, and indeed Wexford, attended a 3-week recruit firefighter skills course, which is a QQI. You get a QQI qualification from it. It was run in Castlebar. We were the first county actually in the country that could run one with the full capacity of 18 students, which is what's required for the local authority service national training group. It's a national course now, Declan, which is kind of amalgamated over the last 5 or 6 years, but it's got a QQI qualification, which facilitates these people to move on into the full-time fire service with the qualifications such as Dublin Fire Brigade or Galway Fire Brigade and so on and so forth. So that they've now got recognition for their qualification. It was unique in the sense that we had to address COVID and everything that COVID came. So we had things like when the lads walked in the door, there was a temperature check. They had to sit 2 meters, at least 2 meters away from everybody. Their fire gear was kept 2 meters away from their colleague. All these things which kind of go against the grain a little bit in the fire service. And Kevin and Richard earlier were talking about teamwork. And one part of this course is primarily to get that bond of a team working together in unison. And yet when we brought them in the door on the first day, we said, you have to keep at least 2 meters apart. So it kind of went against the grain a little bit, but the exercises, of course, brought in the teamwork. And at the end of the day, as I say to all recruits when they start the course, you have to do one thing and one thing only to get through this course. Do what you're told when you're told. Because that's the way we operate, and that's the way the ambulance service operate, and all emergency service operate. We don't have time to stop and think and debate about what we have to do. There's a job to be done, and we'll be told what to do. But it was a successful course, and fair play to the instructors led by Nasa Gannon, my colleague here at Castlebar. She was course director, and she was supported by David Nevin from Inniscrone, Seamus Joyce from Ballina, and Pete McDonald from Castlebar, and Emma Gavin from Charlestown. They did a great delivery of the course. It passed without incident, and all have thankfully qualified, which is the main thing at the end of the day.
And Tony, on the, I suppose, the training itself, the modules, what would the recruits have had to deal with? I know firefighters around the country will probably know this inside out, but is there anything that was introduced new that maybe fire recruits 2 years ago wouldn't have done, apart from code and the restrictions?
I guess firefighting is the same on the recruit course. I suppose what has changed over the years, we've now amalgamated the road traffic collision element into the course, as opposed to kind of them doing it separately a couple of months afterwards. So when the lads leave the course, they're actually able to attend a road traffic collision and actively participate in the incident. But like everything, it's evolved over the years. For example, if you got a recruit firefighter climbing a ladder 10 years ago, he did so without any safety harness, any ropes, anything like that. The new firefighters have to learn how to throw a rope over the roof of a house, tie it down, put up the roof ladder, engage the harness, all of that kind of stuff. So everything, we're still doing the same thing. We're still running out hoses, getting water from A to B, climbing ladders, using breathe apparatus. It's just, I suppose, technology has moved on, and moved on more so, I think, in the likes of the road traffic collision. We have made some investment here, thanks to the National Directorate for Fire and Emergency Management, in the hydraulic tools, which are battery-powered rescue tools. And, you know, we've had compliments from both the ambulance service and the Gardaí about them, in the sense that there's no noise around the car now. So the patient is sitting in the car and they're traumatized enough as it is without getting the noise of a pump or roaring engine at them. The pumps are nice and quiet. It's just as effective. It makes the intervention a lot quicker. They're equally as effective when it comes to making the cut, but from the patient's point of view, they're much quieter. From the firefighter's point of view, they're much more effective, because we can walk around the car with the tool in our hand, as opposed to having to have a colleague to bring the pump with us, and the hoses and trip hazards and all that. So technology is moving on all the time, and it's a job in its own right, trying to keep up with technology as it evolves.
And you mentioned about the BAs. Would recruits have done BA wearers yet, or is it too early for them, or is there a protocol in place that, you know, there's a certain time within the recruitment that they do BA wearer?
There is. Most counties, Declan, would insist on them doing all these courses within the first year. From our point of view, and we had
Yeah.
9 of the 18 students on the course, we have a BA course scheduled to start Monday week. That will run for 2 weeks, and that's in Sligo. And then the second element of BA, again, breathing apparatus is now turned into a 3-week course, but it's delivered over 2 modules, one of 2 weeks and the second of 1 week. The second module deals with compartment fire behavior, which is basically how to deal with a backdraft or how to deal with a flashover. It's advanced breathing apparatus to a degree, but you're not a BA aware until you complete both modules, and that's scheduled. We have our own training facility in Ballinrobe, which is used by a lot of counties, primarily in the west, but down as far as Limerick and over as far as Cavan, generally come to Mayo for their fire behaviour. And that course is scheduled to run, if you might correct me, but I think it's the 16th of December. It's nearly into, it's not quite Christmas week, almost Christmas week. So yeah, our lads who joined the fire fire service in Mayo would say, let's say on the 5th of October, will be fully trained by Christmas. So I think that in its own thing is quite good. But it's we do recognise the commitment. These lads are retained. They have their own place of employment. It's a huge commitment to take 6 weeks off over a 13-week period for the fire service, and we do acknowledge that. But I suppose on the other hand, the next 13 weeks will be relatively free, other than calls. But it is a huge commitment, and we can never give enough credit to the retained fire service, I think, and the hours they put in and the commitment, and indeed their employers who allow them time off work at, I'm sure, peak times. You never notice people leaving the workplace when there isn't a lot on, but you certainly notice them leaving the workplace when you're very busy and deadlines to meet.
Absolutely. I suppose as part of this as well, Tony, I was to have a representative from the NRFA, the National Retained Firefighters Association, just in relation to recent assaults on firefighters. Now, I got a message or a text that person is actually called out to an incident, but they may come back to us during this. But is there anything in the pipeline from even the justice side of it, the department, to bring in any sort of legislation or any penalties, or in terms of any person that commits an assault or an attack on any part of the emergency services? Over Halloween, we saw desperate scenes down in Waterford and in Laois and in many other places. Thankfully, not too many. But
no, nothing that I'm aware of, nothing specific, Declan. But I mean, any offence or any assault is an assault, and is a matter for an Garda Síochána. Thankfully, in Mayo and primarily, I suppose, the Western Seaboard, Clare, Galway, right up to Sligo. Maybe Sligo might have a little bit. We don't have any of that. But listen, it does happen. It happens around. I've seen our colleagues in Tipperary as well were attacked, and it's not nice. We do have the odd one every couple of years here, but we will report to an Garda Síochána, and they will investigate it, the same as if I threw a stone at somebody's car going the road. It's not nice. The UK have legislation, well, they had it all the time for attacks on the emergency services during the COVID times, where people came up and spat on the likes of the police and stuff like that. And what I said, I'm giving you COVID. They brought in emergency legislation to deal with specifically COVID. But it's an assault at the end of the day. It's an attack on somebody's property, and we take it very seriously. If our appliance is attacked or a stone thrown through a window, we will report to an Garda Síochána and let them investigate in the normal manner and hold those accountable.
And can I ask you, Tony, and it might sound cheeky, but is that a very sort of simplistic, just a passing over to the Gardaí? Is there welfare in place then for firefighters that have been assaulted? Is there any welfare or any, well, obviously there is support, but what are those circumstances?
Sorry, the circumstances for what?
Say, for example, a firefighter is assaulted during an incident, and maybe the procedure is for the fire service to report it to the Gardaí, but behind the scenes then internally, is there any other support or mechanism to support the firefighter who has been assaulted?
Oh, of course, yeah, there is. And I suppose we have the long-standing critical incident stress management, which is primarily, people think, to deal with kind of stressful situations, but stressful situations come in different forms. You can have a traumatic road traffic collision where the firefighter is mentally affected. You can have a problem where a firefighter has an issue at home, which is hindering his work and hindering his overall mental capability. So CISM is available to help our firefighters anytime, one-to-one. They can dial up the number, they can talk to their initial peer support or initial confidentially. If they don't feel comfortable with that, they can dial a confidential line. They can meet with the person or do the likes of this, which is becoming very popular with Teams and so on and so forth over the years. So there is avenues with them. We can refer them to, if they require psychological help, if they come to us, we will refer them to our own medical practitioners. But by and large, people, I think, when it comes to this sort of thing, maybe it's a reflection of the fire service, and maybe it's a reflection of our society. We're still not very good at putting our hands up and admitting that it's okay not to be okay. We tend to hide away maybe a little bit, and I think that's something that we're certainly working on in Mayo now, with the mental health side of things. COVID, I suppose, particularly as well for the general population, but the fire service, the mental health has always been an issue bubbling under the surface. And under our new accreditation, our new safety management system is accredited to 45,001. Part of that is to enhance our ability to deal with the mental element.
Very good. Okay, Tony. Listen, thanks very much indeed for taking the time. I know you're rostered call. There you are on cue, as the man says. Look, you probably have to go. Tony, thanks very much indeed for joining us.
No problem. Thanks a million, Declan. Take care.
Thank you, thank you. And Tony is also a roster senior fire officer for Mayo for this weekend as well. And in relation to, we mentioned about some jobs and recruitment around the county. I suppose in relation to some jobs coming up, in-service jobs. Wexford County Council have positions for Senior Assistant Chief Fire Officer. The closing date is the 26th of November, and apply to wexfordco.ie. The HSE have position for a Medical Workforce Planning Research Officer in the National Doctors Training and Planning Department, and the closing date for that is the 18th of November. And the hse.ie is the apply area for that. The Irish Defence Force have multiple jobs in their sector. In the Naval Service, there's vacancies for radio radar technician, Defence Forces, medical officer, a re-enlistment of permanent Defence Forces, and there's actually a lot more jobs, I suppose, in the Defence Forces as well. You'll get all those information on military.ie. In Cork City Council, they're looking for a Senior Executive Fire Prevention Officer, and the closing date is the 12th of November, and corkcity.ie is the address for that. And Louth County Council, Louth Fire Service are recruiting retained firefighters for RD, Carlingford, Drogheda and Dunleer fire stations. There's no closing date listed on that, and Louth County Council is the it's the email for that. And finally, Limerick City and County Council, the Fire Service in Limerick, are seeking a Senior Emergency Control Operator in the MRCC, which is the Munster Regional Control Centre, and the closing date for that is the 13th of November, and apply to Limerick COCO for that.